this heat, dust, and isolation remain the perception of agriculture. However, in the 21st century, agriculture is an exciting, high-tech sector that feeds the world.
Good afternoon, Xolelwa. It's really wonderful for you to make the time to chat to us at Sengen in Worcester. You've come a long way, all the way from Johannesburg. Please introduce yourself and tell us what your connection is with Sengen.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. I'm Xolelwa Zulu, born in the Eastern Cape, small town of Alice, village of Sheshego. So I'm a rural girl at heart, born in the center of rural landscapes. I am a scientist by training, and maybe in our later conversations you'd understand why I'm stressing by training, because I later chose that label. But I was trained as a chemist. I have a PhD in chemistry. I did, for my undergrad, I did a B.Sc in pure and applied chemistry, and went on to specialize for my honors and masters in inorganic chemistry, looking at greener, environmentally friendly ways of making catalysts for the petroleum industry in South Africa. So that was my research training.
Where did you study?
I studied at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. When I started back then, it was the University of Natal, and went through the major process where University of Natal merged with University of Durban-Westville to become what is known today as University of KwaZulu-Natal. So I did all of my qualifications there.
Okay.
Interesting.
Was that in Durban campus or in the campus?
So my undergrad was at the Durban campus, and undergrad up until honors level. So in the middle of that merger and transition to the bigger university, our faculty or College of Agriculture Science had to move physically to the Westville campus, because the Durban campus became the social sciences and engineering campus. So we moved physically to Durban-Westville. So that's where I did my master's and my PhD.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So once you had finished, how many years did you study for? Sounds like a long time.
Gosh, earlier today I had to recall my career progression, and that reflection was like, I spent half of my life studying.
Yes.
But I came into the university in 2002 and finally left in 2013. So that was a total of 11 years of constant studying with no break. It should have been 10 or 9.5, but life happens. It ends up being 11 years.
Wow.
Well done anyway for studying solidly for 11 years.
It's another school career.
Yes.
A whole school career extra.
Yeah.
It wasn't for me.
No, it's not for everyone, and I'm even amazed that we live to tell the tale, especially if you start from the other end to the next, because other people take breaks in between, go and work, experience life, then come back and continue. So doing it from grade 1 actually up until the end. I've never had a break in studying since I went into school.
Wow. So did you get your first, call it, job right after you studied, or were you working while you were doing your degrees?
There's an interesting story behind that, which I told earlier today, because after I finished, and finishing in my terms doesn't mean graduating, right? It's finishing research work. Because I was doing a PhD, I had to do like research work, right? And completion for me meant being done with the physical work of going to the lab and conducting experiments. But that's not the end of it, because you still have to write up what you were doing in a form of a dissertation or of a thesis. So that part took another 2.5 years in addition to the 11 years, because I had decided at that point that I wanted out. I didn't want anything that has to do with me being on campus, which meant at that point I halted my writing process, because I would have chosen to stay on campus and write the thesis. So I went out and took a holiday just to clear my head, or just detach from being in that environment for that long. So I moved to Pretoria with no plan, but knowing that I just didn't want to be in KZN anymore. So I halted the plans to write up and decided that I was going to look for a job, right?
So up until that point, after 11 years, you've not, quote unquote, worked for anybody?
No,
Okay.
had no. I didn't work outside the academic cocoon, because we had work in terms of academic coordination, some form of teaching, but still within the university. So I had not had any working experience outside of that. So I left with no plan, but knowing that I had to leave that. But I was confronted with the challenge, number one, of not having enough work experience. Number two, having these qualifications that determine I must be at a certain level, but can't be without the requisite experience. So it was a catch-22 situation in that way. So in 2013, that same year, I decided I was going to park writing the thesis, and I took a bold step towards my first experience or job experience. I was just tired, because I was confronted with having to write the thesis. Whether I parked it for a year or 2 years, at some point I had to go back to it. So what I did is I was reading an article on engineering news, right? I'm in Pretoria with family and friends, and they had established what we now know as the Technology Innovation Agency. It was new at that point, and there was an article written by the CEO of that agency, and he was going on about the mandate of innovation, what they want to do with that agency, how they want to translate science into meaningful socio-economic impacts for the country in different areas: agriculture, energy, manufacturing, and that at the center of it is skills, niche skills in SET, which is science, engineering, and technology, and how there was this buzz about this innovation chasm between R&D outcomes and tangible socio-economic outcomes. And the agency was meant to fill that gap by providing funding to innovators, people on the ground conducting the science. And I thought, wow, this is interesting, because I had taken a decision back then that I wasn't going to go back to the lab. I wasn't going to be a researcher for the rest of my life. That life I'm literally living back in Durban. So I took a leap of faith. I was like, okay, let me just write to this guy. You know how they, at the end of the article, they write, Dewald is the CEO of TIA, blah, 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 for any comments or questions, email him at this. They provide you the email address. So I took a leap of faith. I sent this guy an email. Say, I'm a PhD candidate. I just finished my lab work. at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. I read your email, your article with interest, and I think your organization is a part of the ecosystem that I'd want to be part of, to learn more about this movement towards not just R&D, but translating it into a way that speaks to policy, government decisions, and all that. I'd like to have a chat with you, if possible, if there are opportunities, just through that.
We always go by a saying is that you never know who you're going to meet or who's going to see your work. And if you don't take a chance like that, you could be 85 years old one day, you said, well, I wish I did that.
So I leave that.
Even shorter. Chance favors the bold.
No, it's I don't even think of myself as a bold, because I just thought at that moment, what's the worst that could happen? He could just look at it or not even like pay it any attention and just move on with his great CEO life. Yeah. So I was like, lo and behold, he comes back to me and he said, my timing is just perfect. They're recruiting for a DST, I think at that point, before it was DSI, NRF, was it an internship program, right? At this point, I've just finished my PhD. You could probably think PhD and an internship, not
you have to start somewhere.
Not so great, yeah. And I was like, I'm confronted with writing this thesis or doing this internship. I was like, the most clear answer to me was that take this opportunity, use it, and go see what's in there. It's probably better than being out here being confronted with a thesis. So I responded, and he connected me, I think, to the head of skills development, who were busy with conducting interviews. And I was invited for an interview, which I passed. I think it was a Thursday, and they said, you're starting on Monday. They offered me a contract in less than 24 hours.
Fantastic.
And so I started. I started my journey in what I theme now is my research, my career in research administration and management.
So how was that first day walking in there?
The first day walking in there, it was strange, because I even asked, what is the dress code? Yes. Right?
It's important to know.
Yeah, and then they said formal, right? I've been in techies and jeans all my life, and I'm like...
Well, formal for a lady means a long dress.
And probably like kitten heels at least, like in a corporate setting. So I've been in jeans and sneakers all my life, and hoodies. And I remember that weekend we had to go shopping for like decent formal looking clothes, at least for that first day. And I think I remember exactly what I was wearing, but I felt so much at home, because most of the people that were there were speaking my language. They were speaking science in a corporate environment. I said, okay, we have a start, at least the science is there. The corporate language is I'm gonna have to catch up in terms of learning about it. Didn't feel strange-ish in terms of who was there and what they were doing. It just felt strange in a different setting for me, from a university campus into corporate offices in different way, and going to meetings.
Makes sense.
That kind of thing, but it felt right. Strange, but felt like I was in the right place at that time.
Wow.
So and then
I was contracted there for 12 months. It was the most exciting 12 months of my life, right? Because there, the work that I was exposed to in terms of research, administration, and management led me to deciding that this is most definitely what I'd want to do for the rest of my life. It might not be there, but it would definitely be elsewhere. Because what they were doing, they were cultivating an environment for innovators in South Africa from grassroots, right? With all the support that they required in terms of innovating, product development, service development, in terms of legal support, in terms of technical development support, in terms of investment funding for all those processes, so that you could go in there as an innovator with an idea and come out after a period of time with a product that you can place in front of an investor and try for businesses. I was so convinced, my head was spinned around in a different way to see how science can translate from science to being something of value to society. So that very first opportunity really influenced the trajectory of my life from then on, because that's exactly what I went on to do in other opportunities that I was confronted with from that point on.
I can imagine that having gone from an academic situation to a business, as they call it, like a business incubator kind of situation, where people are arriving, people that are bright and driven, and they've got ideas, and that you were part of the culture that was making that happen. That must have been incredible.
It really was life altering. It was life changing, because I had been trained in a certain way that you do science and you curate that science in a journal paper, and if you are smart enough, then you can get a patent, and that's just it. The high levels of academic achievement is having published papers that have a certain index, citation, and the likes. I think when I was studying, there was a saying, it's you either publish or you perish.
Publish or perish.
Yes. Yeah, that was the only thing that I thought science was for. But in that environment, I learned that there's much more that you can do from science, and it's been my mantra ever since.
Fantastic. And after the 12, and when did you conquer the mountain that was waiting in front of you?
So in that, so I finished that 12-month stint, right? Still with a monkey on my back. And they couldn't absorb us after 12 months, right? So they had to let us go. But what transpired from that is that opportunity then opened doors to my next opportunity, which was in management accounting in agribusiness, right? And we were working with project submissions from all walks of life. But somehow that propelled me towards management consulting in agribusiness, which was the next opportunity.
So, sorry to interrupt you on that one. Was there any form of agribusiness, agriculture that you worked with in that first 12 months that helped you to get into that sphere?
Not necessarily in the first 12 months, no. But that connection, because the second person that gave us jobs, well, it was just me. That was connected to that one, was focused on business improvements in the agribusiness space. So another lens in this experience that I was accumulating, in that now beyond the technical work of agriculture, I was being exposed now to how people run businesses and how people fail at running businesses, and what issues are there around agribusinesses that make people succeed and what makes them fail, and how do we then design interventions so that we can turn around those that are failing and ensure success for those that we're succeeding. So it just kept growing, like bit by bit, step by step. And the next opportunity from there, I think I stayed in management consulting in agribusiness for another 2.5 years, which was another experience, because we had to go to fields and take samples and take data for what you call like implements, seeds and all that, and then send that to labs and all that, and assess data and write reports and proposals for funding for planting hectares and hectares of land across the length and breadth of this country. So it just kept changing shape in terms of what experience I was getting and where I was getting it from. So,
but how incredibly interesting, and I mean how diverse to be learning all of that stuff. Wow.
Yeah, it was, and it's only now actually that I think about it. It's actually now, like as in where I'm at now in terms of weaving my story, how it came to be, because for me, I'm not a traditional scientist who's an expert in plant biotechnology, or as my training would have dictated that I'm a chemist who's this specialized chemist. It's just a fruit salad of everything that you probably would need, probably not in one person, but in 4 different people that are doing something in the value chain of science in all sectors, be it manufacturing, energy, or agriculture, because you need to have an entrepreneurial spirit if you're going to ride a business in this. You need to have project management, you need to have strategy built into your forte of skills. And you need to understand investment and funding into RD&I, which is in the space that I have. But without all these different experiences, I probably wouldn't have the skills that I have now, being trained in something different altogether.
So what do you do today? If I always tell people, if you're standing around a fire at a braai and it's all strangers.
Yeah.
Everybody goes around, what do you do? What do you do? What do you tell them in short?
Gosh. In short, in short, it would probably be implementing RD&I strategy. So I work in a science council, right? So the core business of a science council is technology development, right? People there are mostly scientists, engineers, and technicians that develop technologies in a wide range of sectors, right? In health, in agriculture, in mining, in smart digital communications. It's such a wide range of focus areas. So in those areas, you have like people that are core in terms of their technology development, their science prowess, their science excellence. You have them in those business areas. But luckily for us, business managers, we're at a central level where we coordinate the R&D strategies of all those different business units to make sure that they make sense to the organization and propel the vision and mission of the organization forward, to translate all that science not to RD&I outputs that are locked into publications, but make sure that they have an impact on the socio-economic landscape of the country, because first and foremost, we use public funds to do that technology.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I missed something. The organization that you work for.
Yes.
The name.
I work for the CSIR, which is the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. It's a public.
CSIR.
Yes, it's a public.
Yes,
it's a public
got it.
institution.
I just missed that bit, but thank you.
Yeah. So for the, again, quote unquote uneducated, if you want to put it like that, who might be listening to this that is interested in something like this. Sorry, let's say I have an idea, I've done my research into that, be it technology or agriculture, whatever. Do I then come to you guys and then you help me to get this product or idea to the world?
There is what we call, the National System of Innovation, right? So it's different players that have specific roles in terms of what to do. Because as you would imagine and come to appreciate that the idea is not valuable as long as it's an idea in your head. Yes. It must translate into a product that somebody else can touch and feel or use.
And give money for.
Yes, and pay.
That's the important part.
Yes, and pay rents for, and then you can be rich, right? So in the NSI, you would have your basic and applied R&D organizations, right? Those that can help turn this idea of yours to see if it's something that can be turned into a product. In our circles, we call them like proof of concepts.
Yes.
Okay.
Right? So they'll take your idea. Okay, tell us, what do you think it does? What have you read? Have somebody done it elsewhere in the world before? How does it work? And all those things. And then they turn that into a proof of concept, right?
Okay,
And
so sorry to interrupt you. So to bring it back to agriculture for anybody that might be. So I've developed a new tractor, for instance.
Yeah.
Automated AI, robotic machine.
Yeah.
I will then bring that idea
Yeah.
and the concept to the organization.
Yeah.
They will do the research and see what is possible, what is not available. And then if that comes then to say, okay, right, you have a viable thing, it goes to the next step.
Yeah. So there is, like in this ecosystem, right? We have different players, like a relay of some sort. Others help you with the proof of concept, right? Others will come with what we call seed funding, right?
Yeah.
Which is money that could be available for you, maybe to take that idea, maybe like a step up. Maybe this is something that you've done in your garage.
Yes.
And all of that, but the science is there and it's valuable. So they provide funding for you to maybe just refine it up a little bit, maybe to version 1.0 of what it was.
I see.
And then you have a different set of players. Once you've invested the seed funding, maybe you've done now like serious market studies that say this thing has never been done in the country before, has never been done in the world before. Let's check in terms of market research what is there. You do what is called patent landscaping, like you see the validity in terms of intellectual property, and then this thing just becomes a little bit more, right? And then the biggish players now invest more money in terms of refining this into what we call a functional prototype, right? Something you can have confidence in, right? It's got market research, it's been developed as proof of concept. Now it's a functional prototype. It gives you that much boldness to go to the big boys to say, I worked with UP on this. The science is okay, it's sharp. You've worked with the technology innovation funding. They've provided 500,000 in terms of creating a prototype. IDC has come with their funding. This has gone up a step now. Now we need to take it to the next level in terms of building a business case, getting all those people that are interested in this and are probably going to put their money in this and buy it. So it's that value chain. So you have a group of people that are interconnected and interrelated to one another, but are working towards the same goal of supporting innovators out there that might probably have these ideas or solutions to challenges that they're experiencing in their everyday life. But it's, as you would expect, it's a long, arduous journey. It's not like you wake up today with an idea and tomorrow you have a product. But there is a system in the country that supports innovators in that process, but each of one play distinctive roles in the chain.
So obviously there's a lot of money moving hands in between all of these. If a Mr. Jones or Joe Soap comes in with an idea like that, and money is invested, is it invested in forms of grants, or does he have to give away equity of the company?
It really depends. It really depends on the, I don't want to say the nature of the technology, but most of it, especially government funding, especially at early stage, there's a lot of grant funding that is available for innovators to work at their initial concepts, right? And most of it is available as grants. You just have to go into submission mode and just
Do all the
detail,
paperwork and-
do all the paperwork, and most of them are competitive. It doesn't necessarily mean that once you've gone through that process, you're guaranteed that you're gonna go on the other end of the story. But there's a lot of that is available in the country, and there's also, I think, maybe then equity exchanging becomes when maybe you have a functional prototype, you probably have connected with your IP and legal teams in terms of converting this product now into a commercial business. And I think that talk comes at a later stage where you really can see from an arm's distance in terms of the value that you can derive from the what would have been an initial idea.
Super interesting.
Yes, extremely interesting. So we are at Sengen in Worcester today, chatting to you, and you told us that you flew in from Johannesburg this morning. Tell us about how your path joined with Sengen's path.
So maybe that's the part I missed in the earlier conversation. So I did a stint in management consulting, right, for about 2 years, which I moved on from and went on to work at a university setting where I did project management of animal genomics projects, right? But I also moved on from there, which led me to an international relations opportunity, right? I was working in South Africa, right? But working for the British government, right? So what I was doing for the British government, right, was, for lack of a better word, their eyes and ears on the ground in terms of what was happening in science and innovation in South Africa.
You were a spy.
I wanted to say spy. I wanted to say spy because you could probably say that.
007.
Yes, and you could say that because it felt so awkward for me, right? Because at heart I want to represent South African interests, right?
But let's interrupt you. There's been this whole big thing in the James Bonds where they're predicting the next James Bond is going to be the first black James Bond, and they want Idris Elba.
Yes.
But we got another suggestion. We got another suggestion.
So
A real life experience.
No, I had a real life. It was an out of body experience because I had to be like two things in
But what
one.
an interesting opportunity! And
It was. It really took me aback because I wasn't even expecting that they called me for an interview, right? But it happened, and I got the role. So I had to be like the middleman, right? From me, they wanted my knowledge and experience of the science and innovation landscape in South Africa, my networks and my reach in terms of what could be of use to them in terms of collaborations and partnerships, right? And it was a relationship that took that form. I was representing the UK interests in South Africa, all right? So I was also like a matchmaker because I was familiar with my setting in South Africa and the opportunities for collaboration that were there for the UK. I could say, okay, because you want to do in South Africa this, like for example, wheat cereals research. You are interested in that, you want to collaborate, you want to exchange genes. Like Renee and them, what they're doing now is that in the UK, you'd probably want to cultivate wheat that is resistant to a certain element, whether it's heat or cold or whatever characteristic that you're looking for. How do they do it in South Africa? So there's that cross-pollination and learning and exchanging biological samples and exchanging knowledge so that what we know here, you can know over there and probably devise technology solutions for your context and client. So that's how these partnerships with Sengen came about, we were interested, well, the UK was interested in wheat research in South Africa. So there's very few organizations that do that, especially at a molecular level, at a genetic level. And because then my knowledge in the sector, and I got introduced to Renee. Wasn't only Renee, it was Renee and some industry partners, I think in Sensako, in Agbies, and I forget the other one. So the initial intervention was that we would devise a program for South Africa of what needed to be done in South Africa to take the research and genomics level to the other level. And the UK was offering their skills transfer to the South African community of wheat cereals research, so that their output will be we investing in food security in South Africa. Those are the headlines, right? But also there's benefit to the South African community, because without this knowledge, without this community of UK experts, their infrastructure, their investment, our research activities and efforts would take that much longer. So all the relationships that I facilitated were mutually beneficial in most cases for everyone. So in 2018, we met up with Renee and her partners, and we undertook a trip to the UK to learn, well, for the industry experts, Renee and them, to learn from the UK the skills transfer. From that emanated a program that they designed in conjunction in terms of how they can make a difference in South Africa. And as they say, the rest is history, which continues then to bring fruits for Renee and her industry partners in 2023, and that happened back then in 2018.
But that's up to, okay, for in this case Renee, it will stay up to them to keep those relationships open.
Yep.
They don't technically need you after that connection is made.
Yep. As long as the initial connection is made, the initial benchmark is made, the initial agreement is there that this is what you want to do. So the interest then is up to the South Africans to say, do we run with this opportunity? Is it really going to make a difference for us? And then they go for it. As you said, I left that organization in 2019, but they still continue to pursue those interests and any other secondary opportunities that have come from there, which she has curated herself.
Okay.
Fantastic.
And I understand from Renee that although you've moved on in your career, you have remained connected to Sengen as that you are a independent director, is that correct? Yes. And because of that relationship, it's part of the reason why you were here now. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about why you came to Worcester for this occasion.
So Renee and I have maintained a relationship because first and foremost, I'm a fan girl of girls in science, innovation, and technology. So by default, I'd be attracted to Renee. So we've maintained that relationship, and I like the strategy that she has in place. I think 95% of the people that work here are women, right? She herself, Renee, out of nothing, established this organization as a woman. Probably I think it was back in 2003 when she established this organization as a one-man team.
One-woman team.
Wow, sorry, man. As a one-woman team from back then, and she's grown it. And she's been intentional about making it a woman's space because she faced those challenges that she did back then. She didn't want the next generation of women to go through that, and sacrificed herself literally to create this environment. And for me, my values and that they are matched in terms of intentionality of building this organization and building it for the next generation women researchers in STEM in such a small setting of the country. It's one of those places that I think are pockets of excellence, but she does it so well. So I resonate with her vision for this organization. So that's part of the reason why I have agreed to partner up with her on this journey as an independent eye in terms of steering the organization. And I'm here today. It's National Science Week in South Africa, and I was amazed today. There was a group of learners, and I think 90% of them again was women, was girl children. So as part of that, Renee is encouraging that learners in high school, because we didn't have this back then. Science was foreign. We didn't see people like us doing science. Back then, a professor in science was a white man with white hair like this and a lab coat, and you wouldn't have never thought that you yourself stood a chance to be a scientist.
But think about it growing up. Have you ever met a scientist?
When you were a kid?
No.
And I grew up in a small, call it a white town if you want to, and I had a love for science, and I never met a scientist.
See? So the commitment then to make things better for the next generation continues, right? We realize that this is no longer about us now, but to pass the baton and make things relatively easier for the next generation, right? For a little black girl from somewhere in Vusumuzi High School to see a live like scientist that looks like her and has hair like her, probably when I speak, like the English escapes me and then I revert back to Xhosa. It's like those little things you really can relate to. So that connection that I have for the girl in STEM, for inspiring the next generation of scientists, especially black girls in science, it continues, and it's part of why I continue to partner with Sengen up to this day.
I think what you're saying is so incredibly valuable and relevant, and we have had the good fortune to be here for two of the pupil days when the learners come in, and when they get given their lab coat and when they get handed the equipment and they're actually doing something.
The very first one was for the teachers.
Yes, for the teachers and the learners, and to see their faces, it's like a magic moment. So there's the opportunity to engage with the stuff, and then I would imagine for you to come here and for them to look at you, and you're a role model, and they can suddenly see themselves there. So that's fabulous.
It's and some of us, those moments we really experience first time at university level. It was the most shocking thing. You are expected to engage with this equipment and produce like an answer to a set of questions. You have no confidence in your level of work. You've never seen this before. It's also strange, but the conviction is so strong inside of you that you really want to have a go with this. So the making it easier is to say, when I was in grade 10 in Worcester, we used to go to Sengen. In grade 10, when I was 16 or 15, I used to walk past Sengen and I used to see these women going to work. And once in a while, I got an opportunity to go out there and learn. And I think one of the ladies shared a part of the program today, shared like a TikTok account that explains things in a detailed way. Now, if you connect the experience that you had in a Sengen lab and what you see on that platform, it makes sense, and it makes that conviction that much stronger. Yeah. So it's all related, and this is personally, this is what I live for, especially when I said it's Women's Month, yes, and it's National Science Week, two of the most important things to me as a career woman.
Yes, for sure. And I can imagine that when you get to this point and suddenly you're looking at these youngsters and you think, actually, I never thought I'd be here, but now I'm here, and these youngsters are looking at me as an inspiration. It must stop you in your tracks a bit.
It's so strange. It's the strangest thing ever. And some of them, when my bio was read out, they were like, wow. It's like they were reading it, looking at me like in disbelief in terms of, is this really possible for the person that I see in front of me? And for me, that's the prize, really. It's a bit uncomfortable, but it's necessary. And I have girl children myself, and
I wanted to ask you.
Yes, I have girl children myself, and my thing is I want them to look at me and see infinite possibilities. They might not be in science, but they must see the conviction that I had in something that I like, and going after it in whatever sphere they choose to be comfortable in. They must see it in me first.
Yes. Well, that is incredible. I mean, you can't just talk the talk. You have to walk the walk. And you've clearly done that. And for these youngsters to see that, and as a role model for them and for your daughters, that's phenomenal.
That's
well
also
done.
why I asked the question earlier about. Sorry.
I'm done.
Well done. Why I asked the question is, did you go spend 11 years straight after school? Did you work in between? It's because a lot of times these youngsters, they see a person like you, but they don't see the 20 or 25 years to get there. Yeah. They see a successful person, they think, all right, I'm going to go study to be a scientist, I'm going to get out of there and I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they are not the one who's going to send that email for that intern job.
Yeah, they're not, and I think that's part of our job, right? It's part of our daily grind in terms of reflecting a real picture, like of what it takes to be where we are. I am on LinkedIn, and there's an organization that we run called Black Women in Science, right? And we post the interventions that we do, the programs that we run, and I post some other things in terms of my commentary on what it takes to build a career. And most of them were really amazed and wanted to link with me in certain ways, and I gave them that information. That it's like they tell you. It's like the narrative. It's like, let's make STEM interesting for girls, right? And that's, yes, kudos, but let's also be real about the lives that we live on social media, about the challenges that especially girl children face in science, technology, and engineering, and be real about it, and write our stories and publish them so that it's literature that they grow up with. It's one thing to see us on there, but it's also another to mentor them through the journeys. That's why I'm saying it's not just for St. Jan only. It's other platforms that we find ourselves in, that yes, we need more girls in science and in engineering, but also we need to tell our stories consistently in terms of the grit it takes to get in and stay in and still be excellent in STEM and engineering.
It's one of those strange things. Is like, I've also got 3 girls.
Yeah.
But they will not listen to me.
Yeah.
But I can tell you now, if you're the one who's going to tell them exactly what I'm telling them, they will listen to you.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I guess it's I don't know. Even my husband, sometimes I tell him to go to gym, like to try, and he never listens to me. But his friends will tell him, "Let's go bike for the next 4 weeks." He's on his bike. He off he is. I think there's power in likeness of mind or whatever structure. If you hear it from that person, it works. It might work that well.
So, we've spoken about a lot of things, but something brought you here today to see these youngsters and to inspire them. And you kind of touched on it, but do you have a particular message for people out there that, if they look at you, that it's possible, but it's hard work and that takes a long time? Do you have a message for anybody that might be listening about your career and about opportunities for youngsters?
Oh, that message for me is clear. We can walk the walk, we can talk the talk, but the conviction comes from each individual, right? Each one of us has that one thing, their North Star, that one thing that never changes, even though any other thing around them changes, right? So my message is simple. Listen to what that thing is, right? Pursue it with all your might. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be straightforward. And our journeys are not going to be standard, right? It might not be predetermined that you do this, the next step is this, and it's straightforward. It might just be do 1, 2, 3, and at 3, you realize that there's something that you didn't do at 1, and you have to go back and zigzag until. But if you stay true to that one thing which is unique in each one of us, because I can't tell you what that is for yourself, you can't tell what that is for him, only us know what that is. But the principles around working at it, even though there's going to be challenges around, is what's going to I think propel you towards your one true destiny in terms of pursuing a career. And I think for young people, especially in this digital age, and I told the young learners earlier today, there are a number of opportunities out there, be it bursaries, be it platforms. I think everybody has TikTok, has social media. They must use them towards that one thing. Everything you post, everything you absorb on social media, the people that you follow, there must be people that are going to feed into that one thing. Because with everything that we are confronted with on a daily basis, there could be a lot of distractions. And again, that one thing, only each one of us knows what it is. We must use our tools around us, the digital age, access to opportunities to shine and hone that thing, and it will lead us to where we need to go.
Will you please come home with me afterwards? To tell my girls, with all the, put it bluntly, the shit that they watch on YouTube, I say to them, listen, this stuff is going to make you stupid. You can watch anything to do with animals and science. It's going to make you clever. You can watch it the whole bloody day. You don't even have to lift up your ass from the couch.
Yeah.
But do not watch this nonsense.
Yeah.
But what do they watch?
The nonsense.
The nonsense.
Are they small?
But
10 and 7.
But what you say, it's not just an inspiration for young people. It can inspiration for anybody, because there are so many distractions today. There are just, before you know it, you are on a platform and you're watching stuff and you think, why am I looking at this? I actually am not interested in this, but it's distracting you. And you need to keep that focus. It needs to be your mantra.
Yeah.
But yes, and to think of when we grew up, all of us, this was not available. Yeah. Your parents, if they had money, would have bought an encyclopedia or the Kennis, and that was your source of information that you had. Yeah. Every school task that was ever done had that quoted somewhere as a reference. Yeah. Now, you've got the world in your hands. And
for good and bad.
Yeah.
For good and bad. But the youngsters of today don't realize the how we struggled and how we wanted that info and we just couldn't get it.
Yeah. You see how I tell my daughters, yes, we struggled, but we didn't have to, right? Struggle is not the default position. We're just unlucky, right? Yes. So we working for them so that they don't say we struggled. But in them not struggling, they should be very tuned up here in terms of what they access on the internet and all those platforms. I tell them bluntly, you can have an hour of nonsense, but for each hour of nonsense, I want an output out of 3 hours of something tangible.
That's a good idea.
And that's how you create the balance, so that they don't become robots now who are like Sheldon and young Sheldon, who just asks everything scientific. They're children at the end of the day. They are curious, must feed in that curiosity. It's part of being a human being, but part of the focus is that you balance where that focus is.
And they listen to you for that.
They do. Well, they're still small, but they know the rules that, we've had 20 minutes of YouTube Kids. Now let's do math, sums, and show mommy. So at least I'm training them in that, okay, you can have this, you can have that, but you need to have more of this, more than this.
It's a good idea. I want to try that.
Do you have a question?
I do. Before I just, it's so fascinating, and I'm very curious about the stuff that you've done. Do you have any successful agriculture apart from Senjin?
Yeah.
Relationships, connections, things that were part of?
Yeah.
That have grown into something bigger that you could tell us about.
From your previous experience.
So for that, I think the beef genomics program, right, started just as that, with the primary funder being the Technology Innovation Agency and co-funded by industry partners. So they wanted to build this huge program where the co-funders, which are the industry people, feed into the program phenotypic data from their heads and their breeding societies, right? And with marrying them with data scientists who are working at the Agricultural Research Council, they could take from that data and biological samples, right, and extract the DNA techniques that were important for productivity in cattle, and say, okay, if you want a cattle that is this much in terms of whatever you deem as a quality beef cattle, you need to breed in a certain way. So it was a nice cross. You feed us data. From that data, we extract genomic data, and then we feed it back to you in terms of how you can change your breeding techniques on the ground, so that you can have high productivity, high quality cattle meat, and then that translates to money in your pocket, right? So we did that, and that also morphed from that to I think it was a tick resistance program, which included partners in Australia and Ireland. So from that small program that we did in South Africa, that ended up attracting other collaborators around the world. And I think there was $10 million that was invested into that program, which is still going on and producing other programs on the side. So like from a small little intervention that was conceived in South Africa, because of the work that we put in and the results that we published and the collaborations that we drove, we kind of like sown a seed in terms of what other people could be doing and attracting more funders. So it just became a whole international thing. So I remain proud of that, because number one, it not only delivered the outcomes that it was designed for, it ended up having secondary other socio-economic impacts, because number one, at a South African level, it attracted sustenance farmers and young farmers that were not into science to see the value of science and incorporate science into their breeding techniques. And not only that, but because they were incorporating science into their breeding programs, we could go to funders and get money for them to implement their programs, which means they increase their head size, not only their head size, but the quality. But also it had international reach, something that we were doing in South Africa, got interest in international partners who also wanted to put foreign currency investment into something that was at the very basic level, a scientific intervention that was designed to have an impact in stud breeding in South Africa.
Wow, that's incredibly interesting.
How long did that project, how long were you involved with it?
I was involved in that from, I think, June 2016 to about July 2018. So about 2.5 years.
Oh.
Yeah. And then I think one interesting thing about it is stud breeding in South Africa is generally like a white boere men sport, or like an excellent thing. I had to interact with Afrikaans men who spoke Afrikaans in meetings on a daily basis and advocate for science and answer their hard questions, because they were putting money onto the program, right?
And it's not little money.
And it's not little money, and they were entitled to doing that. And I didn't have training in agriculture or agricultural biotechnology, but I believed in the science so much, I had to stand and support it and convince them that they must put money onto it, and they would sit on my neck on a monthly basis that they have submitted samples, they want their data, breeding season is coming, they need results. It was the most strenuous part of my career, but even today I still say the most rewarding in terms of outcomes.
And when you happen to bump into one of them,
they're my friends now. I had to go to the middle of Bloemfontein into a stud breeding conference where those people are wearing like shorts and brown shoes and brown socks and those, and they're really laymen. They're interested in their stock, but we must be the advocates for the science. So it was a once in a lifetime opportunity. I look back to it now, and you know that one thing that you do when you so scared, but the more you do it, the more your spine goes strong. Like you are like, you can come to me, Wobas, and I will tell you, if you don't do this, this is what's going to happen to your breeds. And Wobas, the breed is like his pride and joy. He can't afford to just be left behind because he doesn't want to follow technology. So yeah, that was I'm
sure that was very. You can probably write a book just about that.
No, I could, but then the way they're my friends now. I think one of them. There's this kind of beef, Wagyu beef. You probably
Wagyu.
Yeah. So they invited me into. They were launching a society because the data they group themselves into societies, and the data is collected at a society level, because you can extrapolate the outcomes of the genetic analysis into the herd. So of the best in that, they submit this. So they were launching a Wagyu society, wanting to do a similar intervention in terms of breeding Wagyu in South Africa, and they invited me to the lounge. I was like, look at you. So it was one of the most intense, and I was still young back then. But
we've had one of our clients is the table grape industry, and one of the ladies that worked there, Tembi. Timmy's also a young black girl.
Yeah.
And she's gone through she got a bursary from them.
Yeah.
Ended up working there. But Timmy's a fantastic person, and she told us the story. The first time she went to the Orange River, she was standing outside the pack house waiting for somebody, and the woman came out from inside. The floor manager says, "Why aren't you packing grapes?"
Yeah.
Assumptions.
But they quickly corrected her, and we've been together in places where it is so fantastic to see that young girl. That the people listen to her.
So things are changing.
Yes.
And you are part of that first generation that's making it happen. Which is phenomenal.
And it's what I like about it is it's not airy-fairy. It's based on science. It's based on innovation. It's based on outcomes. It's based on the things that we know in their head, but we managed to use that to get in the hearts of people and get people to sign up to wanting to put science at the center of their businesses.
And it's hard work and the will. There's a fantastic, in Afrikaans it's a 3-letter word, in English it's a 4-letter word. Will, you must be willing to do it. You could have turned around and said, well, I'm not going to speak to these Boeroemies.
Yeah.
I'm going to look for something else.
Yeah.
So it's intimidating, but you stood your ground. And
As you said, you had to have your spine.
Yeah, no, when you do it for the first time, it's there shaking. You have jelly knees. You don't know what to say, but you know that it's there and it's true. You've seen it and you felt it. You just need to relay it to the other person in a way that speaks meaning to them, to make that connection that it's not about you and me. It's about what is interesting to you, what is of value to you, and what I bring through me.
But so then you are actually a pioneer as well, and for those people that invited you, I mean, I'm sure that at times it was awkward for them too because they're not used to this. But so we all learn and live and move forward together.
we see we won't die if we try something new.
No.
Yeah.
Might be uncomfortable for a short
Yeah,
while.
for the first few. Yeah.
Right, so we've got a closing tradition is where the previous guy asks a question for the next guy.
It's just a random question. So just to make it fun.
Yeah, you don't know who it is, and your question, the people we ask it won't know who it came from.
Okay.
Okay, so the question is, what has been the most and the least successful thing you have done in your business or career?
I think the most successful is the one that I have just detailed now in terms of working on the beef genomics program and just moving it from a small intervention in South Africa to a wider community in South Africa, then on a wider community in an international world, and building the investment muscle on an international level to go into something that has been conceptualized here. I think that's the most successful. The least...
It's a difficult one.
Yeah, the least... There's been a lot of least successful ones in who now I've said where I work. Maybe let me look for example.
Let's change the least one to memorable.
What did you, and memorable or something that taught you a lot?
Yeah, let's do that one.
Something that taught me a lot. There's probably a project that we're doing now where I work in terms of looking at like developing a model for investing public funds, right? We're a public organization and there's very little expectation for return on investment on what you want, as long as you report in terms of what you've done with the investment. It should just be done, but in terms of tangible ROIs, it's never been it's never been a thing. So we have been tasked to develop this model and approach to say for each rand that we invest into a project, there must be a tangible outcome in terms of a financial indicator or an economic indicator, in that, well, not all projects are going to have like nice bottom lines, but they're going to change lives of a group of people in rural Limpopo because you have deployed a certain technology that costs them almost to 0 rands because they're in a pure community. And there's no financial return there, but out of that you put in, there's something of value that comes. So we this year we implemented that model. So we're not very popular in the organization as you can imagine.
Yes.
That shift from what we used to in terms of reporting to this.
Suddenly you want something back.
Yes, you speak now. The speak is like you're like a bank investor. That's like what's happening to you. But what I've learned from that is that if you bring people on early on into a change process, right? If you introduce something new to people, it is best if you even involve them at the earliest step possible, even at conception level, right? Get them to buy into your motivation around why you want, and translate that into why it's good for them, right? There's always going to be resistance. People are not, they don't react the same way to change. I'm not going to present something to you that's going to rock your world and you all react the same in a year or in anything. So I learned the value of early buy-in. Also the communication. I think it's the one thing that also with the Beef Genomics project, that in articulating the value of your solution, it's not only about the technical output, the solution. If you speak to the heart of the person, right? Because most scientists are so attached to their projects, they're so attached to their work, right? So if you tell them that once we do this and we invest in this, imagine the good story that we're going to tell to the funder or to the primary shareholder in terms of the lives that you are changing, the impact that you're making in terms of the triple challenges in the country, solving joblessness, abating hunger, and creating opportunities for youth. Then that mental shift changes. It's no longer about, but my project is about what the outcome is that aligns with values that people hold dear to their hearts. So I think bringing people in and connecting through the technical work. Yes, the technical work remains on the side, but the implicit value of that outcome is really important because, and this is justified in sometimes, people really love their jobs and they are attached to their work. But beyond the attachment, what is it that they are connected to that speaks the most to who they are, what informs why they wake up every day and continue to be in the same job for the next 10 years and 15 years. So I think that has been my thing, and I think I want to continue to do that, to, yes, speak the science, speak the lingo, but not forget that we're people that value different things and maybe use the technologies and science to connect to the human on the other end.
Very, very interesting and profound, actually, important, because, you know, there's that expression, I think it comes from Simon Sinek, know your why.
Yeah.
Why are you doing things?
Yeah.
Yes, of course you would like to make money and you would like to have a comfortable life.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
It's so very, very, very interesting.
It's different. And then when you understand the other person's why, then you can sneak up on them for lack of a better word. Use that, leverage that,
of course,
to form better bonds and better friendships. That even when you call this person at 12, they don't look at the phone and be like, it's Dewald. I'll look at them in the morning. They know that whatever I'm calling about is important. It's probably going to be valuable to them as well. And use that human connection to propel us forward using science.
The spy techniques they taught you is very good.
No, actually, you know, I was trained. I received diplomatic training, right? Okay. Because we used to work with high commissioners. Yes. Those diplomatic, you have to speak in a certain way. Doesn't matter how angry you are in the inside, you should remain calm. And all these things, they're all coming together.
But it works.
It works. It works.
It's wonderful.
It works.
Thank you so much. It's been incredibly interesting and so stimulating to chat to you.
And we didn't know what to expect.
We just walked in here, no idea. So it's been very interesting. Thank you very, very much for your time.
No, I appreciate it. Wherever I go, I think my mantra is the same. I'm passionate about innovation. I'm passionate about science. I'm passionate about women. Anything that combines those three things, you will find me there. I believe so much in the power of innovation and science in terms of bringing about solutions that we experience in this country. And I think the power of the voice of women in that sector is so every other sector for that matter, but in STEM it's been so far back. We just need to bring it more to the front. So thanks again for your time.
Thank you.